I still remember the exact moment my world shattered into pieces. It wasn't the day my husband died unexpectedly 6 years into our marriage. It wasn't the countless sleepless nights raising a child who didn't share my blood, but owned every piece of my heart. No, it was a warm June evening, fireflies dancing across our backyard, when I overheard my stepdaughter Olivia tell her friends that I was just Dad's leftover wife, and that she's not my actual family. 12 years of school lunches, midnight, fevers, and unconditional love dismissed in a single breath. That's when I made the decision about the $143,000 college fund that no one, not even my late husband, knew I had created. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Rebecca Mitchell, though most people call me Becky. At 42, I'm neither young enough to be considered hip nor old enough to be taken as particularly wise. I'm just a woman who fell in love with a widower and his 3-year-old daughter when I was 28. I had been working as an executive assistant at Meridian Insurance in Portland when Thomas Mitchell walked into our office to file a claim. His wife had passed away 6 months earlier from complications following a routine surgery, leaving him to raise little Olivia alone. There was something about Thomas that drew me in immediately, not just his warm hazel eyes or the gentle way he spoke, but the profound sadness he carried and yet somehow kept at bay. Our first conversation lasted only 15 minutes, but by the end, I'd offered to help him navigate the complicated paperwork. 2 weeks later, we met for coffee to review his claim status. 3 months after that, I was sitting cross-legged on his living room floor, helping Olivia build a tower of blocks that nearly reached the ceiling. The first time Olivia called me Mommy, I cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Thomas and I had been dating for almost a year, and while we'd discussed marriage, I had been careful not to push myself into a maternal role. Olivia had photos of her birth mother, Sarah, throughout the house. Thomas would tell her stories about Sarah before bed. I wanted to be someone in Olivia's life who added love, not someone who replaced the mother she'd lost. But children have their own way of sorting the world. One morning, as I was rushing to get her ready for preschool, frantically searching for her favorite purple sock, Olivia tugged on my sleeve and said, "Mommy, it's under the couch." The word hung in the air between us, neither of us acknowledging it directly. I found the sock, got her dressed, and dropped her off at school, all while my heart threatened to burst from my chest. When Thomas and I married on a bright autumn day, Olivia was our flower girl, though she spent most of the ceremony sitting in my lap, playing with the pearls sewn onto my simple dress. During our vows, Thomas added a line that wasn't in our rehearsal. "I promise that we will always be a family, you, me, and our daughter." Our daughter, not his daughter. Ours. That night, after we'd tucked Olivia into bed in my sister's house, where she would stay during our brief honeymoon weekend, I made a decision. I opened a separate savings account and transferred $5,000 from my personal savings, nearly half of what I had managed to set aside during my working years. I didn't tell Thomas. It wasn't that we kept financial secrets from each other, but I wanted this to be something special, something that was just from me to Olivia. Every month after that, I would deposit a portion of my paycheck into that account. When I received a promotion 2 years into our marriage, I increased the monthly amount. When my grandmother left me a small inheritance, a significant portion went into Olivia's fund. I watched it grow year by year, imagining the day I would reveal its existence. Perhaps when Olivia received her first college acceptance letter. I pictured her face, the disbelief followed by joy. I imagined Thomas's surprise, maybe even a tear in his eye as he realized what I had been quietly building all those years. Our life together wasn't perfect. No family's is, but it was ours. Thomas worked as an architectural engineer, often bringing home blueprints that would cover our dining room table. I continued at Meridian, eventually becoming an account manager. Olivia grew from a shy toddler into a confident elementary school student, and then into a somewhat moody but still loving preteen. The summer before Olivia started 7th grade, our world imploded. Thomas was diagnosed with an aggressive form of brain cancer. The doctors gave him 6 months. He lived for 8. Those final months were a blur of hospital visits, medication, schedules, and trying to create moments of normalcy for Olivia amid the chaos. Thomas made me promise 2 things before he died: to make sure Olivia knew how much he had loved her, and to take care of myself, too. "She's going to need you to be strong," he whispered one night, the machines beeping softly around us. "But you can't pour from an empty cup, Becky. Don't lose yourself in being what she needs." I nodded, tears streaming down my face, not knowing how prophetic those words would become. After Thomas died, Olivia and I clung to each other like survivors of a shipwreck. She would crawl into my bed in the middle of the night, and I would hold her as sobs racked her small body. I took a leave of absence from work, using the life insurance money to give us time to grieve together. We established new routines, invented small traditions to help us move forward. Every Sunday, we would visit the botanical garden Thomas had helped design, bringing a picnic lunch and sitting near the Japanese maples he had loved so much. Through it all, I continued adding to Olivia's college fund. In fact, I increased the contributions, working with a financial advisor to make sure the investments were sound. Sometimes I would forego buying something for myself, a new pair of shoes, tickets to a concert, choosing instead to put that money toward Olivia's future. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was a promise I was keeping to Thomas and to myself. By the time Olivia entered high school, the raw wound of Thomas's death had scarred over. Not gone, never gone, but no longer openly bleeding. Olivia had blossomed into a talented young woman with her father's creativity and her birth mother's musical ability. She joined the school orchestra, playing the cello with a passion that brought tears to my eyes during every concert. I would sit in the audience, recording her performances, sometimes imagining Thomas beside me, his face glowing with pride. The college fund had grown substantially. I had set an ambitious goal, enough to cover 4 years at a good university, without Olivia needing to take out loans. It meant being careful with our finances, but I had managed our household well, and my career had advanced steadily. By Olivia's sophomore year of high school, the fund contained nearly $85,000. By her junior year, it had crossed the 6-figure mark. That was also when things between us began to change. I noticed it gradually at first, small moments of distance, conversations that ended abruptly when I entered a room, plans made without consulting me. Typical teenage behavior, I told myself. Nothing to worry about. But there was something more beneath the surface, a coldness that hadn't been there before. Olivia started spending more time with a new group of friends, particularly 2 girls, named Madison and Jasmine. They came from wealthy families in our neighborhood, the kind who took spring break trips to Europe and drove luxury cars to school. Compared to them, our comfortable but modest lifestyle must have seemed lacking. I tried to bridge the growing gap. I offered to host movie nights for her friends, attempted to engage in conversations about their interests, even chaperoned a school dance to show support. Olivia tolerated these efforts with increasing impatience, her responses becoming more clipped, her eye rolls more frequent. "You don't have to try so hard," she told me one evening after I had spent hours preparing a special dinner for her and her friends. "It's kind of embarrassing." The words stung, but I brushed them off. Teenagers say hurtful things. It doesn't mean anything. I kept repeating this mantra to myself as the months passed and the distance between us grew. By the time Olivia's senior year rolled around, the college fund had reached $143,000, enough for her to attend virtually any university without financial strain. I had educational brochures spread across my desk at home, researching the best programs for her interests in music and design. I was preparing to reveal the fund's existence once her acceptance letters started arriving. The first letter came on a Tuesday, an acceptance to Northwestern University with a modest scholarship offer. Not enough to make a significant dent in the costs, but a recognition of Olivia's talents. I was ecstatic, planning a special celebration dinner. I even bought a card where I would finally tell her about the fund I had been building since she was 3 years old. But Olivia came home late that evening, barely acknowledging the congratulatory banner I had hung in the dining room. "I already celebrated with Madison and Jasmine," she said, heading toward the stairs. "We went out for sushi." I stood in the kitchen, the card burning a hole in my pocket. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "I thought we could celebrate as a family," I said, trying to keep the hurt from my voice. Olivia paused on the stairs, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "It's fine. I'm tired anyway." I decided to wait. This wasn't the right moment. The perfect time would come, perhaps when more acceptance letters arrived. The Northwestern offer was impressive, but with Olivia's grades and talents, I was confident there would be others. And there were. Over the next few weeks, acceptances arrived from UCLA, Boston University, and the University of Michigan. Each one represented a new possibility, a different path her life could take. I added their information to my growing research file, calculating costs, comparing programs, considering distance and climate and campus safety. Through it all, Olivia remained distant, sharing her college news with friends first, treating my excitement as an afterthought. I tried not to take it personally. This was a stressful time for her, filled with big decisions and the looming reality of leaving home. Besides, I reminded myself, soon I would reveal the college fund, and she would understand just how much I had been supporting her dreams all along. The revelation came, but not in the way I had imagined. It happened during Olivia's graduation party, a backyard gathering with family friends, neighbors, and Olivia's school friends. I had spent days preparing, wanting everything to be perfect. Thomas's parents had flown in from Arizona. My sister and her family drove up from Eugene, and even Thomas's brother Michael, who we rarely saw since he moved to Chicago, made the trip. The weather cooperated beautifully, sunny but not too hot, with a gentle breeze that kept the mosquitoes at bay. I had hired a local catering company to handle the food, splurging a bit more than our budget typically allowed, wanting Olivia to feel truly celebrated. As the afternoon progressed, I found myself caught up in hostess duties, making sure glasses stayed filled, introducing relatives to Olivia's teachers, ensuring Thomas's parents were comfortable in the shade. I had just stepped into the kitchen to grab more ice when I heard voices drifting in through the open window. Olivia was standing with Madison and Jasmine near the rose bushes Thomas had planted years ago. I could see them clearly from where I stood, though they couldn't see me. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but then I heard my name. "So what did Rebecca say about Northwestern?" Madison asked, twirling the straw in her drink. Olivia shrugged. "She's all excited, but it doesn't really matter. There's no way I can afford it." "Can't she help?" Jasmine asked. "I mean, she's like your mom, right?" There was a pause, brief but significant, before Olivia responded. "Stepmom," she corrected. "And no, she doesn't have that kind of money. My dad didn't leave much, and she's just an insurance account manager, not exactly rolling in cash." Madison frowned. "That sucks. Northwestern is perfect for you." "Yeah, well," Olivia sighed dramatically. "If my real mom was still alive, things might be different. She came from money. Her parents had a trust fund for me that got tied up when she died. Rebecca tries, but she's not my actual family. She's just Dad's leftover wife." The ice bucket slipped from my hands, crashing to the floor in a cacophony of plastic and frozen chunks. The noise was loud enough to draw attention from several nearby guests, including Olivia and her friends, who turned toward the kitchen window. Our eyes met through the glass. I saw the moment Olivia realized I had heard everything. The flash of shock, followed quickly by defiance rather than remorse. She didn't approach me to explain or apologize. Instead, she turned back to her friends and walked deeper into the yard, deliberately putting more distance between us. I don't remember much of the next hour. Somehow, I managed to clean up the spilled ice, plaster on a smile, and continue playing hostess. Thomas's mother noticed something was wrong and tried to question me, but I deflected, claiming a momentary headache that was already passing. Inside, though, I was imploding. 12 years of love and sacrifice, dismissed so casually. Dad's leftover wife. Not my actual family. The phrases echoed in my head, drowning out the cheerful conversation around me. I kept moving through the motions of the party, all while feeling as though I had suddenly discovered that the life I thought we had built together was nothing but an elaborate fiction, at least to Olivia. That night, after the last guest had departed and Olivia had gone upstairs without offering to help clean up, I sat alone at our dining room table. My entire body felt heavy, weighed down by a grief that rivaled what I had felt when Thomas died. Because this, in its way, was also a death. The death of the relationship I thought Olivia and I had shared. I pulled out my phone and accessed the banking app that connected to Olivia's college fund. The balance stared back at me. 143's 257. 89. Nearly 15 years of careful saving, strategic investing, and personal sacrifice. A fund built on love and the belief that Olivia was as much my daughter as if she had been born to me. What would Thomas say if he could see us now? The thought brought fresh tears to my eyes. He had been so certain that Olivia and I would always be a family, that our bond would endure. Had I failed him? Failed her? I had tried so hard to be what she needed, supportive but not pushy, loving but not smothering. Where had it all gone wrong? The next morning, I had made a decision. I transferred the college fund money into a different account, one that was still accessible, but separated from its original purpose. I wasn't being vindictive. I was creating space to think, to decide what this new reality meant for both of us. Olivia came downstairs late, already dressed in a new outfit I recognized from a shopping trip with Madison's family that I hadn't been invited to join. She grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl and headed for the door without a word. "We need to talk about college," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. She paused, one hand on the doorknob. "What about it?" "How are you planning to pay for Northwestern? The scholarship only covers about 15% of the costs." Olivia turned to face me, her expression guarded. "I don't know yet. Student loans, I guess. Maybe a campus job." She shifted uncomfortably. "I was going to ask if you could help. With some of it." The irony was almost painful. For years, I had been preparing to help in a way that would have exceeded her wildest expectations. Now she was reluctantly asking for a contribution, not knowing that just yesterday I had been ready to hand her a future free from educational debt. "I heard what you said yesterday," I said quietly. "About me not being your actual family." Her cheeks flushed, but her chin lifted in that stubborn way that reminded me so much of Thomas. "You were eavesdropping on a private conversation." "I was getting ice for your graduation party," I corrected. "The party I spent weeks planning. And that cost nearly $2,000 we don't really have to spare." "I didn't ask you to do all that." "No, you didn't. Just like you didn't ask me to read to you every night when you were little. Or help you practice cello for hours on end. Or sit with you in the hospital when you broke your arm falling out of the oak tree. You didn't ask me to love you like my own daughter. But I did it anyway." Something flickered in her eyes. Uncertainty, perhaps. Or the first glimmer of recognition that her words had cut deeper than she had intended. "Whatever," she mumbled, turning back toward the door. I'm meeting Madison. We can talk about college stuff later. There's something you should know, I said, causing her to pause again. I've been saving for your education since you were 3 years old. Now I had her full attention. She turned, brow furrowed. What do you mean? I opened a college fund for you right after your father and I got married. I've been contributing to it every month for almost 15 years. As of yesterday, it contained over $143,000. Olivia's jaw dropped. Are you serious? Why didn't you ever say anything? It was going to be a surprise, a gift, from family to family. She took a step toward me, her expression a mix of shock and dawning hope. So, I can go to Northwestern without loans? I took a deep breath. I've transferred the money to a different account. I need some time to think about what happens next. What does that mean? Her voice rose. You're punishing me for one stupid comment? This isn't about punishment, Olivia. It's about realizing that we have very different understandings of our relationship. You see me as Dad's leftover wife, someone who's been in your life by circumstance rather than choice. That's not how I've seen you. To me, you've been my daughter in every way that matters. So what? You're holding my college money hostage now? That's really going to improve our relationship. The money isn't gone, I assured her. But before we make decisions about how it's used, we need to have some honest conversations about expectations and what family means to both of us. Olivia grabbed her backpack from the floor, her movements sharp with anger. This is so unfair. You never told me about this money, and now you're using it to manipulate me because you got your feelings hurt. That's not what's happening, and I think you know it. Take some time to think about things. We'll talk when you get home. She yanked the door open. Whatever. I'm staying at Madison's tonight. And with that, she was gone, leaving me alone, in the house that suddenly felt too quiet, too empty. I sank into a chair, wondering if I had just made a terrible mistake. But deep down, beneath the hurt and uncertainty, there was a flicker of something else. A recognition that for the first time in our relationship, I was prioritizing honesty over harmony. I wasn't just smoothing things over to keep the peace. I was acknowledging that something fundamental had broken between us. The question now was whether it could be repaired, and what that repair might look like. The college fund hadn't just been about money. It had been a physical manifestation of my love for Olivia, a tangible proof of my commitment to her future. Now it had become something else, a pivot point around which our relationship would either rebuild itself or finally collapse. I picked up my phone and texted Thomas's mother, "Can we talk?" Whatever came next, I knew I didn't want to face it alone. The next morning, I woke up early after a nearly sleepless night. The house was quiet. Olivia hadn't come home from Madison's, which didn't surprise me. Her disappearing act was becoming a pattern whenever tension arose between us. Sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee growing cold between my hands, I opened my laptop and logged into my banking portal. The college fund was still there, $143,257.89, sitting in its own dedicated account. I had meticulously named it Olivia's Education, even though she never knew it existed. 15 years of monthly transfers, careful investments, and occasional windfalls. 15 years of planning for a future I had envisioned us celebrating together. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wasn't vindictive by nature. This wasn't about punishment. But Thomas's words from his hospital bed echoed in my mind. Don't lose yourself in being what she needs. For too long, I had defined myself solely through my role in Olivia's life. I had prioritized her needs, her wants, her future, often at the expense of my own well-being. And now I knew that she saw me as an accessory to her life rather than an integral part of it. I created a new account and initiated a transfer. Not all of the money, I wasn't ready for that kind of definitive action, but enough to make a statement. $100,000 moved from Olivia's education to a new account simply titled Future Planning. The remaining $43,257, 89 stayed put. Enough. For a year at Northwestern, perhaps. Enough to show I wasn't completely abandoning her dreams, but also enough to make clear that things had changed. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Carol, Thomas's mother. She was checking to see if I wanted to have brunch before she and Robert flew back to Arizona. I hesitated before replying. Carol and Robert had always been kind to me, embracing me as family from the moment Thomas introduced us. But would they take Olivia's side in this? Blood was thicker than water, after all. I sent a quick response agreeing to meet them at their hotel restaurant in an hour. Whatever happened next, I wouldn't hide from it. The brunch started pleasantly enough. Carol hugged me tightly when I arrived, her familiar lavender perfume enveloping me in memories of family holidays and quiet conversations on the porch swing at their Arizona home. Robert shook my hand warmly, his eyes crinkling at the corners, just like Thomas's used to do. "How are you holding up?" Carol asked once we were seated. Yesterday seemed a bit chaotic. I stirred my coffee, considering how much to share. It's been a challenging time. Olivia's graduation, college decisions coming up, a lot of changes. Carol nodded, exchanging a glance with Robert. "We noticed some tension between you two yesterday. Is everything all right?" The careful concern in her voice broke something open inside me. Before I could stop myself, tears were sliding down my cheeks. I told them everything. The overheard conversation, Olivia's dismissal of me as not real family, the college fund I had built in secret, my decision that morning to transfer most of it to a separate account. When I finished, Carol reached across the table and took my hand in hers. "Oh, Becky." "I know it sounds petty," I said, wiping at my eyes with a napkin. "Like I'm holding her future hostage because my feelings got hurt. But it's more than that. It's about recognizing that the relationship I thought we had doesn't exist, at least not for her." Robert cleared his throat. "It's not petty at all," he said firmly. "That money is yours. You earned it, you saved it, you invested it. You didn't have to do any of that for Olivia. Most step-parents don't." "Robert's right," Carol added. "And as for Olivia's comments," she sighed. "Teenagers can be cruel without even realizing the impact of their words. But that doesn't excuse it." I had prepared myself for judgment, for being told I was overreacting. The unconditional support caught me off guard. "You don't think I'm being unfair?" Carol shook her head. "I think you're finally standing up for yourself after years of putting Olivia first. That's not unfair. That's necessary." "Thomas would want you to be respected," Robert added quietly. "He wouldn't have tolerated Olivia speaking about you that way." The mention of Thomas brought fresh tears to my eyes. I miss him so much. Sometimes I wonder if things would be different if he were still here. Carol squeezed my hand. "We all miss him. But you've done an incredible job raising Olivia on your own these past 5 years. That girl has had every advantage, every opportunity, because of your dedication. And now, Carol said with gentle firmness, it's time for Olivia to understand that actions and words have consequences. Whatever you decide to do about the college fund, we'll support you." Their unwavering support was a lifeline I hadn't known I needed. As we finished our meal, we talked about practical matters, how to approach the conversation with Olivia, what boundaries might look like moving forward, and yes, what to do about Northwestern. "Don't make any permanent decisions yet," Carol advised as we hugged goodbye outside the restaurant. "Give yourself time to process. Give Olivia time to understand what she's done." I promised I would, feeling lighter than I had since the party. I wasn't alone in this. I still had family, even if Olivia didn't see me as hers. When I returned home, Olivia's car was in the driveway. I took a deep breath before entering, steeling myself for whatever awaited inside. I found her in the kitchen, rummaging through the refrigerator. "There's nothing to eat," she said without looking at me. "There's plenty of food, just not ready-made meals." She slammed the refrigerator door and turned to face me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, either from lack of sleep or crying, possibly both. "Where were you?" "Having brunch with your grandparents before they fly home." "Without me?" The indignation in her voice was startling. "You weren't home. You didn't answer my texts asking if you wanted to join us." She crossed her arms. "Whatever. Did you tell them what you're doing?" "If you mean, did I tell them about the college fund? Yes, I did. And let me guess, they think I'm a horrible, ungrateful person." I leaned against the counter, suddenly tired. "They think you're a teenager who said something hurtful without considering the consequences. But they also understand why I'm upset." Olivia rolled her eyes. "Of course they took your side." "This isn't about sides, Olivia. It's about respect. It's about recognizing the relationship we've built over the past 15 years. The relationship you forced on me, you mean? I didn't ask for a stepmother." Her words were deliberately cruel, designed to wound. I refused to let them penetrate. "No, you didn't. Just like I didn't ask to become a widow at 37. We don't always choose the circumstances of our lives, but we do choose how we respond to them." "So your response is to ruin my chances at Northwestern?" Real mature. "I haven't ruined anything," I said calmly. "I've simply reassessed how I want to contribute to your future. The college fund still exists. There's still money in it." "How much?" she demanded. "A little over $43,000. Her eyes widened. "That's not even enough for 1 year at Northwestern." "It's a start, more than many students have access to. And there are other options: scholarships, grants, student loans, or state universities, which would be significantly less expensive. You know I want to go to Northwestern. Their music program is one of the best in the country. Madison's parents are paying for her to go to UCLA, and Jasmine's going to Berkeley. And now I'm supposed to, go to community college because... You got your feelings hurt?" I met her gaze steadily. "No one is saying you have to attend community college. I'm saying that the unlimited financial support you were counting on, without even knowing it existed, is no longer unlimited. Welcome to the real world, where most people have to make choices and compromises about their education." "This is so unfair," she shouted, tears welling in her eyes. "You're punishing me for one stupid comment." Is that all it was, Olivia? One stupid comment? Or was it an honest expression of how you really see me? She faltered, looking away. "I was just talking. It didn't mean anything. Words always mean something." And yours revealed that after 15 years of being in your life, cooking your meals, helping with your homework, attending every recital, every doctor's appointment, every milestone, you still see me as an outsider. As Dad's leftover wife. Not as someone who has loved you as her own child since you were 3 years old. Tears were now flowing freely down her cheeks. "What do you want from me? A big dramatic apology? Fine. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I don't want a forced apology. I want genuine recognition of our relationship. I want you to see me, really see me, not as an obligation or an inconvenience, but as someone who has chosen every single day to be your mother in every way that matters." She wiped angrily at her tears. "So what happens now? I just don't go to college?" "Of course you go to college, but perhaps not the most expensive option, at least not right away. Or perhaps you work harder for scholarships, or take a gap year to earn money. There are multiple paths forward, Olivia. But you have the money. You just don't want to give it to me now." "I have the money that I earned and saved for 15 years, I corrected her. "Money that I could have spent on myself, on my future, but chose to set aside for yours. That was a gift, Olivia, not an obligation. And gifts come from relationships, of mutual respect and love." She stared at me, a mixture of anger and confusion in her eyes. So what? I have to earn back your love now? Prove I'm worthy of your precious money? No, I said softly. My love has never been contingent on anything. It's always been yours, freely given. But my financial support going forward will reflect the reality of our relationship, whatever that turns out to be. Olivia grabbed her purse from the counter. This is emotional blackmail. It's consequence, Olivia, something you'll encounter frequently in adulthood. I'm going back to Madison's, she announced, heading for the gore. At least her family treats her with respect. Respect is earned, not given, I called after her. And it goes both ways. The door slammed behind her with such force that a framed photo on the wall tilted askew. It was a picture of the three of us, Thomas, Olivia, and me, taken on a Dow's beach vacation when Olivia was about 9. We were all smiling, our arms around each other, the setting sun casting a golden glow over our faces. I straightened the frame, my fingers lingering on Thomas's image. I'm trying, I whispered to him. I really am. The house felt emptier than usual that evening. I made a simple dinner for one and ate it while scrolling through my emails, trying to distract myself from the hollow ache in my chest. There was a message from Northwestern University, a generic update for parents of admitted students. I almost deleted it automatically before realizing the irony. I wasn't Olivia's parent, according to her, just Dad's leftover wife. I closed my laptop and moved to the living room, curling up on the couch with a book I had been meaning to read for months. Before I could even finish the first chapter, my phone rang. It was Carol. Just checking in, she said when I answered. How did it go with Olivia? I gave her a condensed version of our confrontation. She's back at Madison's now. I don't know when or if she's coming home. She'll be back, Carol assured me, once she's had time to cool down and really think about things. I hope so, but part of me wonders if I've damaged our relationship beyond repair. You haven't, Carol said firmly. You've simply drawn a boundary that should have been drawn long ago. It might be painful now, but it's necessary for both of you. After we hung up, I tried to return to my book, but the words swam on the page. Instead, I found myself wandering through the house, touching objects that held memories of our life together. The ceramic bowl Olivia had made in 5th grade art class, the framed program from her first cello recital, the quilt Thomas's grandmother had sewn for our wedding. So many fragments of a life I had thought was solid, unshakable. Yet it had been built on a foundation that was apparently one-sided. I had poured my heart into being Olivia's mother, while she had seen me as… what? A caretaker? A placeholder? The woman who happened to be married to her father? The pain of that realization was almost physical, a weight pressing on my chest until it was difficult to breathe. I sank onto the edge of Olivia's bed, surrounded by the trappings of her life. Posters of musicians on the walls, stacks of books on the nightstand, a pile of laundry she had yet to put away. My gaze fell on her desk, where a collage of photos was tacked to the bulletin board. Most were recent, Olivia with her friends, at school events, on a camping trip with Madison's family last summer. But tucked in one corner was an older photo I hadn't seen in years. It showed Olivia, maybe 4, years old, sitting on my lap as I read her a story. We were both laughing, her small hand reaching up to touch my cheek. I remembered that moment. We had been reading Where the Wild Things Are, her favorite book at the time, and I had been doing ridiculous voices for each monster. The photo was small, faded, easily overlooked among the larger, more vibrant images of her current life. But it was there. She had kept it, displayed it, this tiny glimpse of a time when our relationship had been simpler, unmarred by teenage rebellion or the complexities of blended family dynamics. I touched the photo gently, a wave of nostalgia washing over me. There had been love there, Real, uncomplicated love. What had happened to it? Had it disappeared? Or had it simply been buried under layers of adolescent identity formation and the grief of losing her father? My phone chimed with a text message, pulling me from my reverie. It was from Thomas's brother, Michael. "Hey Becky, just landed back in Chicago. Mom filled me in on what's happening with Olivia. Just wanted to say I'm here if you need anything. You've been an amazing mom to her, whether she recognizes it right now or not. Love you, sis." The simple message brought fresh tears to my eyes. Michael had always been supportive, but we weren't particularly close. For him to reach out this way meant a lot. I typed back a quick thanks, then noticed the time. Nearly midnight. Olivia still hadn't come home or messaged me. I sent her a text. "Just checking that you're safe. Love you." No response came. I wasn't surprised. When Olivia was angry, she retreated entirely, shutting down all communication until she was ready to re-engage. It was a trait she had inherited from Thomas, who would disappear into his home office for hours after an argument, emerging only when he had processed his emotions and was prepared to discuss things calmly. I fell into a restless sleep on the couch, waking at dawn with a stiff neck and a sense of resolution. Whatever happened next, I knew I had made the right decision. The college fund transfer wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my self-worth. For too long, I had measured my value in Olivia's life by what I could provide, what I could sacrifice. It was time to establish a new dynamic, one based on mutual respect rather than one-sided giving. The sound of a key in the lock startled me. Olivia entered quietly, clearly trying not to wake me. When she saw me on the couch, she froze. "You're up early," she said, her voice carefully neutral. I straightened, pushing my tangled hair away from my face. "I fell asleep here last night. You didn't answer my text." She shrugged, dropping her bag by the door. "My phone died. It was a transparent lie, but I let it pass. Are you hungry? I can make breakfast." She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, okay." The simple acceptance felt like a tentative olive branch. I moved to the kitchen and began gathering ingredients for French toast, Olivia's favorite since childhood. She hovered in the doorway, watching me work. "Madison's mom thinks you're being unreasonable," she said after a few minutes of silence. "She says you have a legal obligation to support me through college." I cracked eggs into a bowl, keeping my tone even. "Madison's mom is misinformed. Parents have no legal obligation to pay for their children's college education, biological, adoptive, or step. It's a choice many make, but it's not required by law. But you have the money. You saved it specifically for me." "Yes, I did. Out of love, not obligation. And a significant portion of it is still available to you. Just not the full amount I had originally planned." She crossed her arms, leaning against the door frame. What would Dad think about this? The question was designed to hit a nerve, but I refused to let it. Your father would be disappointed that after 12 years of marriage and 5 years since his death, you still don't see me as family. He would want you to understand the impact of your words and actions on others. You don't know that. I knew your father very well, Olivia. We were partners in every sense of the word. And one thing Thomas valued above all else was integrity. Being honest about who you are and what you stand for. She fell silent, watching as I dipped bread into the egg mixture and placed it on the griddle. The familiar domestic ritual felt strangely comforting. A momentary return to normalcy amid the emotional turbulence of the past 2 days. "I got an email from Northwestern," she said finally. "They want a deposit by next week to secure my spot." I flipped the French toast, the sweet aroma of cinnamon filling the kitchen. "And what are you thinking?" "I don't know." Her voice was small, uncertain. "I really want to go there. Their music program is amazing, and they have this special certificate in arts management that would be perfect if I decide to go that route. instead of performance. I nodded, letting her continue. But $43,000 isn't enough. Even with the scholarship, I'd need another $30,000 for the first year alone. And then there's sophomore, junior, senior year. She trailed off, the magnitude of the financial reality sinking in. There are options, I said, sliding the French toast onto a plate and handing it to her. Student loans, work-study programs, additional scholarships you could apply for, or, as I mentioned, state universities with strong music programs that would cost significantly less. She took the plate without meeting my eyes. But you have the rest of the money. You're just choosing not to use it for my education now. I poured myself a cup of coffee before responding. That's correct. I've set it aside for now. What happens to it depends on several factors, including how our relationship evolves from here. So, I have to, what? Pretend you're my mom to get the money back? I set my coffee cup down with deliberate care. No, Olivia, you have to genuinely recognize the role I've played in your life. You have to understand that family isn't just about blood or legal documents. It's about who shows up day after day, year after year. It's about who loves you through the hard times and celebrates with you during the good ones. She stared at her plate, pushing the food around with her fork. It's not that I don't appreciate what you've done, she said quietly. It's just complicated. I know it is. You lost your birth mother before you could even remember her. You lost your father just as you were entering adolescence. I understand that those losses have shaped you, that they've created questions about identity and belonging that are difficult to navigate. She looked up, surprise flickering across her face. You do? Of course I do. I've watched you struggle with those questions for years. But understanding your pain doesn't mean I have to accept being dismissed as irrelevant in your life. Both things can be true simultaneously. You can be wrestling with complex emotions about family, and I can require basic respect as someone who has loved and cared for you for 15 years. Olivia took a small bite of French toast, chewing thoughtfully. Grandma Carol called me last night, she admitted. She said some things that made me think. Oh? I tried to keep my tone neutral, though curiosity surged through me. She told me about how you used to send her updates about me every week after Dad died. Photos, stories, videos of my recitals. She said you were determined that I wouldn't lose my connection to Dad's side of the family, even though... She swallowed hard. Even though some step-parents might have pulled away. I nodded, remembering the effort I had put into maintaining those relationships. Your grandparents? Your Uncle Michael? They're your family. I never wanted to come between you and them. Grandma also said that you consulted with them about every major decision regarding me, that you asked for their input about schools, about my cello lessons, about everything important. Of course I did. They're your family. But so are you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. That's what Grandma kept saying, that you're family too, even if we don't share DNA. The simple acknowledgement brought a lump to my throat. That means a lot to me. Olivia set her fork down, meeting my gaze directly for the first time since she'd come home. I'm sorry for what I said at the party. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. How did you mean it? She sighed, pushing her plate away. I don't know, I guess. Madison and Jasmine come from these perfect nuclear families. 2 biological parents, siblings, family vacations every year. Sometimes I feel like my life is this complicated mess in comparison, and it's easier to create distance, to tell myself that my real family would have been different, better somehow. Easier than accepting the reality of loss, you mean? She nodded. Yeah, I guess. And when I'm with Madison and Jasmine, I sometimes feel like I need to explain why my family doesn't look like theirs. Why I live with my stepmom instead of a real mom. She made air quotes around the word real, her expression apologetic. I understand that impulse. I said gently. But creating that narrative comes at a cost. It dismisses the relationship we've built. It erases 15 years of shared history. I know, she admitted. Grandma made that pretty clear. She also told me about the college fund, about how you started it right after you and Dad got married, and how you've been adding to it every month since then, even after he died. Yes? Why didn't you ever tell me about it? I sipped my coffee, gathering my thoughts. At first, it was going to be a surprise, something special to reveal when you got your college acceptance letters. Then, as things became more strained, between us this past year, I think I held on to it as proof, to myself more than anyone, that I was still committed to being your mother, even if you were pulling away. Olivia was quiet for a long moment, absorbing this. So what happens now? With Northwestern? With everything? I sat across from Olivia at our kitchen table, the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows, illuminating the tension between us. The remnants of our French toast breakfast had been cleared away, but the weight of our conversation remained. So what happens now? Olivia asked again, her voice steadier than before. With Northwestern? With everything? I took a deep breath, considering my words carefully. I think we need to explore all options. Northwestern is still possible, but it would require a combination of the money that's still in the fund, additional scholarships, and probably some student loans. She fidgeted with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. I've already applied for every scholarship I could find. Most of the deadlines for new ones have passed. What about a gap year? I suggested. You could work, save money, and apply for more scholarships for the following academic year. Northwestern would likely allow you to defer your admission. Olivia's face fell. A gap year? While all my friends go off to college? That would be humiliating. There's nothing humiliating about taking time to work and save, I countered. Many students do it. It shows maturity and responsibility. Or I could just go to state, she said, her tone flat. It's cheaper. That's another option. Their music program is well respected. But it's not Northwestern. Her voice cracked, slightly. Dad always said I should go to the best school possible. He said not to settle. The mention of Thomas sent a familiar ache through my chest. Your father wanted you to have opportunities, yes, but he also valued hard work and earning your way. He wouldn't have expected anyone to hand you everything without effort on your part. Olivia was quiet for a moment, absorbing this. I have an idea, she said finally. What if I go to state for 2 years, then transfer to Northwestern for my junior and senior years? I could save money, prove myself to you, and still graduate from the school I want. I was surprised by the thoughtfulness of her proposal. That's actually a sensible approach. Many of your general education requirements would transfer, and you'd still get the Northwestern degree. So would you help with that? She asked, a note of hope entering her voice. Use the $43,000 for state and then, or maybe reconsider the rest of the money for Northwestern later. I studied her face, searching for signs of manipulation, but saw only genuine inquiry. I think that's a reasonable compromise. But Olivia, this isn't just about the money. It's about our relationship. She nodded slowly. I know. Grandma made that pretty clear last night. What exactly did she say? Olivia sighed, leaning back in her chair. A lot, actually. She told me about how after Dad died, you could have sent me to live with them in Arizona. That some stepmoms might have done that, especially since you were so young and suddenly had to raise a kid alone. This was news to me. Carol had never mentioned having such a conversation with Olivia. That was never an option I considered, I said honestly. Not even for a moment. Yeah, that's what Grandma said. She also told me that you turned down a big promotion 2 years ago because it would have meant more travel, and you didn't want to leave me alone that much. I felt a flush creep up my neck. I had never told Olivia about that opportunity, not wanting her to feel like a burden. Your grandma shouldn't have shared that. Why not? Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't relevant. I made a choice that was right for our family at that time. But it was a sacrifice, Olivia pressed. One I didn't even know about. I shrugged. That's what parents do, Olivia. They make sacrifices, big and small, often without their children ever knowing. She was quiet for a moment, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. Grandma also said that when I was little, you used to drive 45 minutes each way to take me to that special cello teacher because he was the best, even though there was another teacher just 10 minutes from our house. Mr. Abramson was worth the drive, I said simply. You had talent. He knew how to nurture it. But that was hours of your life, every week, for years, just sitting in the car, waiting for me. I brought books, and sometimes I'd take walks around the neighborhood. It wasn't a hardship. Olivia looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Why did you do all that? All these things for me, when I'm not even your biological kid? The question hung in the air between us, fundamental and raw. I took my time answering, wanting to get the words exactly right. Because from the moment your father introduced us, you became part of my heart. Being a mother isn't about biology, Olivia. It's about choice. Every day I chose to love you, to care for you, to put your needs alongside my own. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because being your mom, step or otherwise, has been the greatest privilege of my life. Tears welled in her, eyes again, but these seemed different from the angry ones earlier. Even when I was awful to you, like yesterday? Even then, I confirmed. My love doesn't disappear when you make mistakes, but that doesn't mean there aren't consequences for hurtful actions. She wiped at her eyes. So the state university then, Northwestern plan. You think that could work? I think it's a mature compromise. And if you maintain good grades at state, you might qualify for additional transfer scholarships at Northwestern, which could help offset the costs. Olivia nodded slowly. I'll look into that. She hesitated, then added, I'm sorry, for what I said at the party. I didn't mean it like it sounded. I believe you, I said, but I also think there was an element of truth in it. And that's what we need to address. Not just the words themselves, but the underlying feelings that prompted them. What do you mean? I think you've been struggling with questions of identity and belonging, especially as you prepare to leave for college. That's natural. But instead of talking to me about those feelings, you've been pushing me away, creating distance. She didn't deny it. It's complicated, she said finally. Sometimes I feel guilty for being close to you, like I'm betraying my birth mom or something, which is stupid, because I don't even remember her. It's not stupid at all, I assured. It's a very common feeling among children who have lost a parent, especially at a young age. You feel a loyalty to her memory, even without concrete memories of your own. Dad used to tell me stories about her, Olivia said softly, about how she loved music too, and how she had this laugh that would fill a room. Sometimes I worry that I'm forgetting the stories, and then I'll have nothing left of her at all. My heart ached for her. We could record those stories, create a journal or even a video series where you retell the things your dad shared. That way, you'll always have them. She looked up, surprised. You'd help me do that? Even though she was, your mother? I finished gently. Of course I would. Sarah will always be a part of you, Olivia. I've never wanted to erase her from your life. If anything, I've tried to honor her memory by raising you with the same love she would have given you if she could have stayed. A small sob escaped her. I don't deserve you. It's not about deserving, I said. echoing words I had spoken to her countless times throughout her childhood. Love isn't earned, it's given freely. But respect, that's something different. That is earned on both sides. She nodded, wiping her face with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. So what now? Now, I think we need to take some time to really talk. Not just about college, but about everything. Your feelings about your birth mom, your dad, our family. And I need to be more open with you about my experiences too. The choices I've made. The hopes I have for both of us. Like therapy? She asked, wrinkling her nose. I laughed softly. Not necessarily, though that's always an option if you want it. I was thinking more like regular check-ins. Maybe a standing dinner date once a week where we can talk openly without distractions. I could do that, she agreed, cautiously. And what about Northwestern? The deposit is due next week. Let's do some research on State University today. Look at their music program, the transfer pathways to schools like Northwestern. If it seems like a viable option, I'll help you with the application, and we can use part of the college fund for that. Then, if all goes well during those first 2 years, we can revisit the Northwestern plan. Olivia sat up straighter, a new determination in her eyes. I'll make it work. I'll get perfect grades at State. I'll practice cello even more. I'll show you. This isn't about proving yourself to me, I interrupted gently. It's about creating a future that reflects both your dreams and the reality of our resources. And more importantly, it's about rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect. She nodded slowly. I understand, and thank you for not just writing me off after what I said. You're my daughter, Olivia. That doesn't change because of one painful moment. For the first time since the graduation party, she met my gaze directly, without anger or defensiveness. You're my mom, she said quietly. Not just Dad's wife. I'm sorry I ever made you feel otherwise. The simple acknowledgement brought tears to my eyes. It wasn't a solution to all our problems, but it was a beginning. A recognition of the relationship we had built over 15 years through joy and grief, through ordinary days and milestone moments. Thank you for saying that, I managed, my voice thick with emotion. After a moment, Olivia stood and awkwardly moved around the table. She hesitated, then bent down to give me a brief hug. It was tentative, almost shy, but it was the first physical affection she had initiated in months. I'm going to go research State's music program, she said, pulling away. Maybe we can talk about it over dinner? I'd like that, I replied. I'll make lasagna. A small smile tugged at her lips. With the garlic bread? Is there any other way? She shook her head, some of the tension finally leaving her shoulders. No, there really isn't. As Olivia headed upstairs to her room, I sat for a few minutes in the quiet kitchen, processing everything that had happened. The wound wasn't fully healed. It would take time and consistent effort on both our parts to rebuild what had been damaged. But for the first time since overhearing those devastating words at the graduation party, I felt a flicker of hope. Later that afternoon, I was working in the garden when my phone rang. It was Michael, Thomas's brother. Hey, just checking in, he said when I answered. Mom texted that you and Olivia had a good talk? I brushed dirt from my hands. We did, actually, better than I expected. She's upstairs now, researching alternative college options. That's great, Becky. I'm really glad to hear it. He paused. And how are you doing? The simple question caught me off guard. So many people had asked about Olivia, about our conflict, about college plans. Few had inquired specifically about my well-being. I'm processing, I said honestly. It's been an emotional few days. I can imagine. Listen, I've been thinking. Remember how Thomas always talked about wanting to take Olivia to visit the music conservatories in Europe? That summer trip he was planning before he got sick? Of course. He had brochures all over his office: Vienna, Paris, London. The memory brought a pang of sadness. Thomas had been so excited about that trip, seeing it as a way to nurture Olivia's musical talents while creating lasting memories together. What if we did that trip this summer? You, me, Olivia? A sort of pre-college experience. We could visit those conservatories, catch some performances, maybe even arrange for Olivia to have a masterclass or two. I was stunned by the suggestion. Michael, that's incredibly generous, but it would be expensive, and with the college situation. I've been doing well at the firm, he said. Made partner last year, actually. I've got the miles, the hotel points, and to be honest, I've been a pretty absent uncle these past few years. This would be a way for me to reconnect with Olivia and honor Thomas's wishes at the same time. I sank onto the garden bench, overwhelmed by his offer. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Talk to Olivia. See if it's something she'd be interested in. No pressure either way. I will. Thank you, Michael. Truly. After we hung up, I sat in the garden for a long time, watching bees flit between the lavender bushes Thomas had planted years ago. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn, and a light breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass from a neighbor's yard. In this peaceful moment, I could almost feel Thomas's presence, his approval of the difficult but necessary stand I had taken with Olivia. The back door slid open, and Olivia stepped onto the patio, laptop in hand. "Can I show you what I found?" she called. I waved her over, making room on the bench beside me. Of course. She settled next to me, opening her computer to reveal a page from State University's website. So their music program is actually pretty impressive. They have this special chamber music track that's super selective, only 8 students per year, and the director studied at Juilliard. Her enthusiasm was palpable as she scrolled through course descriptions, faculty biographies, and performance opportunities. This wasn't the reluctant acceptance of a disappointing alternative I had expected. She seemed genuinely excited about the possibilities. "And look at this," she continued, clicking to another tab. "They have a guaranteed transfer program with Northwestern and 3 other top music schools. If you maintain a 3.7 GPA and pass an audition in your sophomore year, you're automatically accepted as a transfer student." "That sounds perfect," I said, genuinely impressed by her research. "Have you checked the application deadlines?" She nodded. "That's the best part. They have rolling admissions for transfers and late applicants until June 15th. I already started the application." She hesitated, then added, "I also emailed my cello teacher to see if he'd write a recommendation letter. He responded right away and said he'd be happy to." "That's wonderful, Olivia. I'm proud of how you're handling this." She closed the laptop, turning to face me. "I've been thinking about what you said earlier, about respect being earned on both sides. I want to earn back your trust. I want to show you that I do see you as my mom, not just through words, but through actions." The sincerity in her voice moved me. That means a lot to me. "There's something else," she said, a note of hesitation entering her voice. "I was thinking about what you said regarding Mom, Sarah, I mean, and recording Dad's stories about her. I'd really like to do that. But I was also wondering if maybe you'd share some of your stories too. About Dad. About your life together. About the early years when you first became my stepmom." The request surprised and touched me. "I'd love to do that, Olivia. There are so many stories I could tell you. Moments you might not remember because you were so young, or things that happened when you weren't around." "Like what?" she asked, genuine curiosity in her expression. I smiled, memories flooding back. "Like how your dad was so nervous the first time I came over for dinner that he burned the garlic bread and set off the smoke alarm. Or how when we started dating, he would call me every night after putting you to bed, and we'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. Olivia smiled, eager for more. What about when you decided to get married? How did that happen? Well, your dad had this elaborate proposal planned at a fancy restaurant downtown. He had arranged for the string quartet to play my favorite song, had a speech prepared, the whole works. But that morning, you woke up with a high fever. We spent the day in the pediatrician's office and then the emergency room when your temperature wouldn't come down. I don't remember that at all. You were only 4. Anyway, by the time we got home, it was nearly midnight. The restaurant reservation was long past. You were finally asleep in your bed, and your dad and I were exhausted, sitting on the couch in our rumpled clothes. And that's when he proposed. No music, no speech, just a simple question asked from the heart. Olivia's eyes widened. Really? That's not the story Dad told me. He said he proposed at that fancy restaurant with the chandeliers. I laughed softly. Your father always did have a flair for embellishment. He probably thought the real story wasn't romantic enough. But for me, it was perfect. It showed me exactly what life with him would be like. Unexpected, sometimes messy, but always filled with love. What did you say when he proposed? I said that I was saying yes to both of you, that I wanted to be his wife and your mother, in whatever capacity you would accept me. Olivia was quiet for a moment, absorbing this. I wish I remembered more from when I was little. Sometimes it feels like there's this whole history that belongs to me, but I can't access it. That's why stories are so important, I said gently. They help us connect to the parts of our lives that exist only in other people's memories. She nodded thoughtfully. Hey, what about our photo albums? Could we look through those together? Sometime? Maybe you could tell me about the pictures, fill in the blanks. I'd love that, I said, touched by her interest. Actually, there's a whole box of photo albums in the attic that we haven't looked at in years. Can we get them down tonight? After dinner, maybe? The eagerness in her voice warmed my heart. Absolutely. We sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, watching a hummingbird dart among the flowers. Finally, Olivia spoke again, her voice thoughtful. I have a question, and I want you to be really honest. Always, I promised. If I'd known about the college fund all along, if I hadn't said what I did at the party, would you have given me the whole amount for Northwestern without hesitation? I considered the question carefully. Yes, I believe I would have. That was always the plan. But I also think I would have expected you to contribute in some way, applying for scholarships, perhaps working part-time during the school year, or summers. The fund was meant to be a foundation, not a blank check. She nodded slowly. That's fair. And actually, the Guaranteed Transfer Program requires participants to complete an internship or work experience related to their field of study. So I'd be doing that anyway. See? Sometimes alternative paths have unexpected benefits. Olivia turned to look at me directly. Can I ask you something else? Something personal? Of course. Are you happy? I mean, since Dad died. Have you been happy at all? The question caught me off guard. I had been so focused on ensuring Olivia's well-being after Thomas's death that I had rarely stopped to evaluate my own emotional state. That's a complex question, I said finally. I've had moments of happiness, certainly. When you performed your first solo recital after your dad died, I felt a joy so pure it almost hurt. When you got your driver's license, when you were accepted to Northwestern, these were happy moments. But overall, she pressed. I sighed. Overall, I think I've been existing, functioning, doing what needed to be done. Happiness hasn't been my primary goal. That's sad, Olivia said softly. It's life, I countered. Sometimes we go through periods where survival takes precedence over joy. But that doesn't mean joy doesn't return eventually. Is that what the other money is for? The $100,000 you transferred? Are you going to use it to find your happiness again? The question was surprisingly insightful. I hadn't thought of it that way, but perhaps. I've been so focused on your future that I haven't given much consideration to my own. Maybe it's time I did. What would you do with it? If you could do anything? I leaned back on the bench, allowing myself to dream a little. I've always wanted to take photography classes, real ones, not just the online tutorials I've been following. And I've thought about fixing up the guest cottage at the back of the property, turning it into a small rental for additional income. You should do those things, Olivia said with surprising firmness. You deserve to have your own dreams, not just support mine. Her words touched something deep within me. For years, I had channeled all my hopes and ambitions into creating opportunities for Olivia. The idea of reclaiming some of that energy for myself was both exhilarating and terrifying. Thank you for saying that, I said quietly. It means more than you know. Olivia stood, gathering her laptop. I'm going to finish my application to state. Then maybe we could start dinner together. I could help with the lasagna. I'd like that very much. As she headed back inside, I remained on the garden bench, my thoughts swirling. The conversation had taken turns I never expected. Olivia's curiosity about my life, her encouragement to pursue my own interests, these were signs of a maturity I hadn't recognized in her before. Perhaps this conflict, painful as it had been, was catalyzing growth for both of us. My phone buzzed with a text from Carol. How are things going? Robert and I made it home safely. I typed back, better than expected. Olivia and I are talking. Really. Talking. She's researching State University as a 2-year option before transferring to Northwestern. And we're making lasagna together tonight. Carol's response came quickly. That sounds promising. One step at a time, right? Love you both. One step at a time. It was how Thomas and I had approached parenting from the beginning, addressing each challenge as it arose, celebrating each milestone as it passed, never getting too far ahead of ourselves. Perhaps that was the approach we needed now, as Olivia and I navigated this new territory in our relationship. I glanced at my watch, surprised to see how late it had gotten. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow across the garden. Inside, I could hear Olivia moving around the kitchen, probably gathering ingredients for dinner. The sound of her humming drifted through the open window, a melody from one of her recent cello pieces. For the first time in days, I felt a sense of peace settling over me. We had a long way to go, Olivia and I, but we were moving in the right direction. The college fund, what remained of it, and what I had set aside, would serve its purpose, though perhaps not in the way I had originally intended. Instead of being simply a financial resource, it had become a catalyst for honest communication, for reassessing our relationship, for growth. As I rose to join Olivia in the kitchen, I silently thanked Thomas for the wisdom he had shared in those final months. Don't lose yourself in being what she needs, he had said. It had taken me 5 years to fully understand what he meant. That by maintaining my own identity, by valuing myself enough to require respect, I was actually being exactly the mother Olivia needed as she prepared to step into adulthood. Tonight we would make lasagna and look through old photos. Tomorrow we would submit her application to State University. And in the days and weeks to come, we would continue this delicate dance of reconnection, of redefining our relationship not as stepmother and stepdaughter, but simply as family, chosen, cultivated, and cherished, regardless of blood or circumstance. The summer passed in a blur of activity. Olivia's application to State University was accepted with a small merit scholarship that covered about 20% of her tuition. She had deferred her Northwestern acceptance for 2 years, explaining her plan to complete her general education requirements at State before transferring as a junior. To my surprise, her Northwestern admissions counselor was supportive of the approach, even offering advice on which courses would transfer most effectively. We settled into a new rhythm, more open and communicative than before. True to our agreement, We had weekly dinner dates where we talked about everything from college preparations to memories of Thomas to our hopes for the future. Sometimes these conversations were difficult, bringing up insecurities or painful recollections. Other times, they dissolved into fits of laughter as we shared funny stories or reminisced about Thomas's terrible dad jokes. On a warm August evening, 2 weeks before Olivia was scheduled to move into her dorm at State, we sat on the back deck with glasses of lemonade, enjoying the sunset. The garden was in full bloom, butterflies and bees darting among the flowers Thomas had planted years ago. "I've been thinking about something," Olivia said, setting down her glass. "About the rest of the college fund." I turned to her, curious. "What about it?" "I don't want you to think I'm just waiting for you to give me the money for Northwestern in 2 years. That's not what this is about anymore." "I know that, Olivia." She fidgeted with her napkin. "I was thinking, what if we split it? Half for my education when I transfer, and half for you to use for your own dreams. The photography classes, the guest cottage renovation, whatever you want." I was stunned by her suggestion. "That's very generous, but that money was set aside for your education. By you," she pointed out. "You saved it. You invested it. And education comes in many forms. Maybe your photography classes are just as important as my music classes." The maturity in her perspective moved me deeply. "When did you get so wise?" I asked softly. She smiled, a hint of her father's dimple appearing in her cheek. "I had a good teacher." We sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, watching the sky transition from blue to pink to deep orange. I thought about her proposal, about what it represented beyond the financial implications. It was an acknowledgement of my worth, of my right to pursue my own dreams alongside hers. "I have a counteroffer," I said finally. "What if we use the majority of the fund for your Northwestern years, but carve out enough for me to take those photography courses this fall while you're starting at State? That way, we'll both be beginning new educational journeys at the same time." Her face lit up. "I love that idea. We can compare notes on our classes, complain about homework together." "Deal," I said, extending my hand for a mock formal handshake. As we laughed together, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Michael, confirming the final details for our European trip. After much discussion, we had decided to postpone the conservatory tour until next summer, between Olivia's freshman and sophomore years. That way, it would serve as both a reward for her first year of college and an opportunity to explore potential transfer destinations, as several European music schools had exchange programs with Northwestern. "Uncle Michael again?" Olivia asked, noticing my smile. "Yes. Just confirming our flights for next summer. Paris, Vienna, London." She leaned back in her chair, a dreamy expression crossing her face. "I still can't believe we're doing that trip. Dad would have loved it." "He would." "Have," I agreed. Though he probably would have insisted on adding Prague to the itinerary. He always wanted to see the astronomical clock. "We could still add it," Olivia suggested. "For Dad." I nodded, making a mental note to discuss it with Michael. "I think that's a wonderful idea." The summer evening stretched on, fireflies beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. I thought about how much had changed since that painful moment at Olivia's graduation party. What had begun as a devastating revelation of how she saw me had transformed into an opportunity for growth, for honest communication, for a deeper understanding between us. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been if I hadn't overheard you that day?" I asked suddenly. Olivia considered this, her expression thoughtful. "I think about it a lot, actually. I would have gone to Northwestern, used the college fund you'd saved, probably without ever fully appreciating what it represented. And we might have continued with this distance between us. Me not seeing you clearly, you feeling unappreciated. So, in a strange way, perhaps it was necessary," I mused. "Painful, but necessary. Life's funny that way, she said, sounding so much like Thomas that it made my heart ache. The hardest moments sometimes lead to the most important growth. The wisdom in her words struck me. This was not the same self-absorbed teenager who had dismissed me as Dad's leftover wife just a few months ago. There was a new thoughtfulness. To her, a deeper understanding of the complexities of human relationships. "I'm proud of you, Olivia," I said softly. "Not just for how you've handled the college situation, but for the young woman you're becoming. Your father would be proud too." She blinked rapidly, emotion crossing her face. "Thanks, Mom." The word, spoken so naturally now, filled me with warmth every time I heard it. No longer a childhood label used out of habit, but a conscious recognition of our relationship. "There's something else I wanted to talk to you about," I said, sensing the moment was right. "Something I've been considering for a while." Olivia turned to me, curious. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about changing my name back to Mitchell, taking your dad's last name again. When Thomas died, I had kept my maiden name, Carlisle, which I had maintained professionally throughout our marriage. It had seemed simpler at the time, avoiding the paperwork of another name change while dealing with the overwhelming grief of his loss." "Really? Why now?" I took a sip of lemonade, organizing my thoughts. For a long time, I think I was afraid that if I took his name after his death, it might seem like I was clinging to something that was gone. But I've realized lately that it's not about holding on to the past. It's about honoring the family we built together, you, me, and your dad, and about making a statement about who we are to each other now. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "You'd do that for me? Take our name?" "For us," I corrected gently. "For the family we are, regardless of biology or legal documents." She impulsively leaned over and hugged me, an increasingly frequent gesture these past few months. "I'd really like that," she whispered. As we broke apart, she wiped at her eyes, then reached for her phone. "Speaking of family and names and stuff, I've been working on something I want to show you." She scrolled through her photos, then handed me the device. On the screen was an image of a cello case with a luggage tag attached. The tag had been designed with a photo of the three of us, Thomas, Olivia, and me, from our last family vacation before his diagnosis. Beneath the photo was a simple inscription: "Olivia Mitchell, daughter of Thomas and Rebecca." "I had it made for college," she explained, a hint of nervousness in her voice, "so everyone will know who I am, who we are." I stared at the image, emotion welling up so intensely I couldn't speak. This small gesture represented everything I had ever wanted. Recognition not as a replacement for Sarah, but as a parent in my own right, standing alongside Thomas in Olivia's heart. "If it's too much, or if you don't like it," Olivia began, misinterpreting my silence. "It's perfect," I managed, my voice thick with tears. "Absolutely perfect." She relaxed, a smile spreading across her face. "Good, because I already ordered it, and it's kind of expensive to change." I laughed through my tears, recognizing the touch of Thomas's practical humor in her comment. "Well, we can't have that, can we?" The sun had nearly disappeared below the horizon now, the sky deepening to indigo. A few early stars winked into view, reminders of the vastness beyond our small moment of connection. "You know what I was thinking about earlier today?" Olivia asked, her gaze turning upward to the emerging constellations. "What's that?" "I was thinking about that weekend when I was maybe 10 or 11, and Dad was away at that architecture conference. It was pouring rain, and I was complaining about being bored, driving you crazy probably." I smiled at the memory. "You made a compelling case that your boredom was a medical emergency requiring immediate intervention." She laughed. "Yeah, I was dramatic. But instead of telling me to go find something to do, you canceled your plans for the day and we built. that massive blanket fort in the living room. We spent the whole weekend in there, watching movies, playing board games, making s'mores in the fireplace. "I remember," I said softly. "You fell asleep during The Princess Bride, your head on my lap. I sat there for hours, not wanting to move and disturb you." "I wasn't actually asleep," she admitted with a grin. "At least not the whole time. I just liked being close to you, feeling safe while the storm raged outside." The confession touched me deeply. "Why were you thinking about that today?" She shrugged, suddenly shy. "I don't know. I guess I was packing some things for my dorm room, and I found that old photo of us from that weekend. The one where we're both wearing those ridiculous blanket cape things. And it made me realize that some of my best memories growing up weren't the big vacations or special occasions. They were just ordinary moments with you and Dad, feeling like I belonged, like I was safe." Her words echoed my own thoughts about family, that it was built not through dramatic declarations or legal documents, but through the accumulation of thousands of small moments of love, care, and presence. "I hope you take that feeling with you to college," I said. "Not just the memory of it, but the knowledge that it still exists, that you still have a home where you belong, where you're safe, whenever you need it." "I know I do," she said quietly. "I think I lost sight of that for a while, especially after Dad died. I got so caught up in trying to figure out who I was supposed to be without him that I almost pushed away the one person who's been constant in my life." "We all lose our way sometimes," I assured her. "The important thing is finding our way back." As darkness settled fully around us, we moved inside, continuing our conversation in the warmth of the kitchen. Olivia helped me prepare a simple dinner, moving around the space with a new confidence. She had been taking more interest in cooking lately, asking me to teach her family recipes before she left for college. "So what classes are you thinking of taking?" she asked as we sat down to eat. "For your photography program?" "There's an introductory digital photography course I'm excited about," I said, "and one on composition that looks fascinating. I'm also considering a Photoshop class, though that feels a bit intimidating." "You'll be great at it," she said with certainty. "You've always had an eye for detail. Remember how you used to rearrange all our family photos because the balance was off?" I laughed, recalling Thomas's good-natured teasing about my perfectionism. "Your father called it my obsessive picture syndrome. Dad had a terrible pun for everything," she said, her tone warm with affection rather than weighted with grief. We continued talking as we ate, discussing our upcoming classes, Michael's European trip plans, and the logistics of moving Olivia into her dorm room. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, without the tension that had marked our interactions for much of the past year. After dinner, as Olivia helped me load the dishwasher, she suddenly paused, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "You know what's weird? If I had gone straight to Northwestern, I probably would have been so focused on trying to fit in, to prove myself in this prestigious program, that I might not have enjoyed it as much. Now, going to state first, I feel like there's less pressure. I can explore more, try different classes, maybe even join the jazz ensemble like Professor Liu suggested during my campus visit." "That's a healthy perspective," I said, impressed by her insight. "College should be about exploration, not just achievement." "Exactly. And State has this amazing community music outreach program where students teach lessons at underserved schools. I've already signed up to volunteer. It wouldn't have been on my radar at Northwestern, where everyone's so focused on performance and competition." Her enthusiasm warmed my heart. What had begun as a disappointing compromise was now opening doors to experiences and opportunities she might otherwise have missed. It reminded me of something Thomas used to say about architecture, that the most interesting designs often emerged from working within constraints rather than having unlimited resources. "I'm excited for you," I said sincerely. "And a little Bit envious, if I'm honest. There's something special about starting a new chapter, stepping into the unknown. You're doing it too, she reminded me, with your photography classes. And the guest cottage renovation, eventually. I nodded, feeling a flutter of anticipation. True, it's been a long time since I pursued something just for myself. Too long, Olivia said firmly. You've spent the last 15 years taking care of everyone else. It's your turn now. As we finished cleaning up, my phone buzzed with a message. It was a notification from my banking app, confirming a scheduled transfer. I had arranged for the first installment of Olivia's tuition payment to be sent to State University today. Everything okay? Olivia asked, noticing my expression. Yes, just confirming your tuition payment went through. First semester is officially paid for. She came to stand beside me, an arm slipping around my waist in a casual half hug. Thank you. Not just for the money, but for everything. You're welcome. For everything. We stood there for a moment, united in a way we hadn't been in years. The journey ahead wouldn't be perfect. There would still be arguments, misunderstandings, the natural friction that occurs in any family relationship. But the foundation had been repaired, strengthened even, by the difficult conversations and realizations of the past few months. Later that night, after Olivia had gone to bed, I sat at my desk reviewing the course catalog for my photography program. The classes began in 3 weeks, just enough time for me to get Olivia settled at State before starting my own new adventure. My gaze drifted to a framed photo on the wall, Thomas and me on our wedding day, Olivia between us, all 3 of us beaming. It had been the beginning of our family, though none of us could have known the challenges that lay ahead. Thomas's illness and death, Olivia's adolescent struggles, my own journey to find my place as a stepmother, and then as a widow raising a stepdaughter alone. Yet despite everything, here we were. Olivia preparing for college, me embarking on a new creative pursuit, both of us finding our way forward while honoring the bonds that connected us. Not because of biology or legal obligation, but because of love, choice, and the countless moments of caring that had woven us together into a family. The next morning, Olivia and I visited Thomas's grave, something we did each year before major life transitions. We placed fresh flowers, yellow roses, his favorite, and stood together in the peaceful cemetery, surrounded by ancient oak trees. I wish he could see us now, Olivia said softly. See you going back to school, me starting college. He sees, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. Not in a literal sense, perhaps, but in the way that love transcends even death. He's part of who we are, how we love, the choices we make. Olivia nodded, seeming to find comfort in the thought. Do you think he would be okay with how things turned out? With State instead of Northwestern, at least for now? I think he would be incredibly proud of your maturity, your willingness to adapt your plans, your growth these past few months. She knelt to arrange the flowers more carefully against the headstone. I talk to him sometimes, in my head or when I'm playing cello. I tell him about my day, ask him questions. I do the same thing, I admitted, especially when I'm faced with a difficult decision. I imagine what advice he would give, what perspective he might offer. Does it help? I smiled. Usually. Your father had a gift for cutting through complications to find the heart of a matter. Remember his famous question whenever we were stuck on a problem? Olivia laughed. What matters most here? She quoted, mimicking Thomas's thoughtful tone. Perfectly. Exactly. Such a simple question, but it has a way of clarifying things. As we walked back to the car, Olivia reached for my hand, a gesture she hadn't initiated since early childhood. Thanks for bringing me here today. It helps to feel connected to Dad before everything changes again. Some things don't change, I said, squeezing her hand gently. The love we have for him, for each other, That remains constant no matter where life takes us. The 2 weeks before Olivia's move to State University passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Shopping for dorm essentials, packing her belongings, attending orientation events. Through it all, there was a new ease between us, a deepened understanding that made even the most mundane tasks feel significant. On the morning of move-in day, I awoke early to find Olivia already in the kitchen, making pancakes, my favorite breakfast, which Thomas had traditionally prepared for special occasions. "Morning," she said cheerfully. "Hope you're hungry." I took in the scene, the kitchen island covered with pancake batter, sliced fruit, maple syrup, and a vase containing a single sunflower. "What's all this?" "Just thought we should start the day right," she said with a shrug that didn't quite conceal the emotion behind the gesture. "Big day and all." I poured myself a cup of coffee, touched by her thoughtfulness. "It looks wonderful. Need any help?" "Nope, almost done. Sit. Eat." I did as instructed, watching as she confidently flipped the last pancake onto a plate. This capable young woman seemed worlds away from the little girl who had once needed a stool to reach the stove, who had begged for butterfly-shaped pancakes every Sunday morning. "These are delicious," I said after taking a bite. "You've mastered your father's recipe." She smiled, a hint of pride in her expression. "I've been practicing when you weren't home. Wanted to make sure I could make them for myself at college, when I'm homesick or before big exams. Dad always said pancakes were good luck." The simple statement held so much. Her acknowledgement that she would miss home, her connection to Thomas's memory, her forethought in preparing for emotional challenges ahead. My heart swelled with pride and a bittersweet awareness of this transition we were making together. After breakfast, we loaded the car with Olivia's belongings, clothes, bedding, her beloved cello, boxes of books and personal mementos. The trunk and back seat were packed to capacity, a physical representation of her life moving from our home to her new beginning. The drive to State University took just over an hour, the conversation flowing easily between us. Olivia alternated between excitement about her upcoming classes and nervousness about meeting her roommate, living in a shared space, navigating a new social environment. "Everyone probably feels the same way," I reassured her. "Even the ones who seem completely confident. I know. It's just weird, thinking about sleeping in a different room, not hearing you moving around the house in the morning, not having our kitchen or my practice space. You'll create new routines," I said. "New favorite spots to practice, new morning rituals, and home will still be here whenever you need it." As we turned onto the campus, Olivia fell silent, taking in the red brick buildings, the expansive green quadrangle, students and parents bustling about with moving carts and suitcases. I found a parking spot near her residence hall, and we sat for a moment, absorbing the reality of what was about to happen. "Ready?" I asked softly. She nodded, a mixture of emotions playing across her face. "As I'll ever be." We joined the flow of activity, checking in at the residence hall desk, collecting her key and orientation materials, making our way to her assigned room on the 3rd floor. The space was small but bright, with 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 dressers. One side already showed signs of occupancy: colorful bedding, posters on the wall, personal items arranged on the desk. "Looks like your roommate beat us here," I observed. Olivia set down the box she was carrying, surveying the room that would be her home for the next academic year. "It's really happening. I'm really here." "You are," I confirmed. "And you're going to be amazing." We spent the next few hours unpacking, arranging her belongings, making her side of the room reflect her personality. I helped her hang fairy lights above her bed, set up her desk with the framed photos she had carefully selected, made her bed with the new comforter we had chosen together. Her roommate, Zoe, returned as we were finishing up. She was a friendly, energetic girl from Chicago, also a music major, though her focus was on voice rather than strings. The two hit it off immediately, discovering shared interests in jazz, classic films, and hiking. As afternoon turned to evening, the residence hall began hosting a welcome dinner for new students and their families. It was clear from the schedule of events that this was the natural moment for parents to say their goodbyes. Standing in the hallway outside Olivia's room, I felt a lump forming in my throat. This was it. The transition we had been working toward since she was a little girl. The moment when she would step more fully into her independence. "So," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I should probably head out soon. Let you settle in, meet your floor mates, start getting comfortable." Olivia nodded, a sheen of tears visible in her eyes despite her attempt at nonchalance. "Yeah, I guess so. I put a little something in your desk drawer," I said. "Top right. Nothing fancy, just a few notes for your first week, in case you need a boost." She smiled, clearly touched. "Thanks. I'll check them out later. And you can call or text anytime, day or night. I mean it." "I know. Same goes for you, okay? Especially when you start your photography classes. I want to hear all about them." I nodded, unable to trust my voice for a moment. Then, gathering myself, I said, "I am so proud of you, Olivia. Not just for being here, but for who you are, your resilience, your creativity, your growing wisdom. You're going to do wonderful things." She blinked rapidly, then stepped forward to hug me tightly. "I love you, Mom," she whispered. "I love you too, sweetheart. So much." We held each other for a long moment, both understanding that something significant was ending, even as something new was beginning. Then Olivia stepped back, wiping quickly at her eyes. "Okay, enough of the mushy stuff," she said with a watery smile. "You should hit the road before traffic gets bad, and I should go meet these people I'm going to be living with for the next year." "Good plan," I agreed, picking up my purse. "Call me tomorrow. Let me know how your first night went." "Definitely." With one last hug and a wave, I walked down the hallway toward the stairs. Every step requiring a conscious effort not to look back, not to extend the goodbye beyond what was already an emotional threshold. In the car, I allowed myself a few moments of quiet tears, not from sadness exactly, but from the overwhelming mix of emotions that accompanied this milestone. Pride in the young woman Olivia had become, gratitude for the relationship we had rebuilt, hope for her future and mine, and yes, a touch of sadness for the daily presence I would miss. As I drove home in the gathering dusk, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From that painful moment at Olivia's graduation party to this day of new beginnings, we had traversed a landscape of hurt, anger, reconciliation, and deepened understanding. The college fund that had once represented my secret gift to Olivia had become something more significant, a catalyst for truth, for growth, for the redefinition of our family bonds. Back at the house, I wandered through the quiet rooms, feeling the absence of Olivia's energy and presence. Her bedroom door stood open, the space tidier than it had been in years, though still distinctly hers. On her desk lay a small package wrapped in silver paper with a note attached. Curious, I picked up the note. "Mom," it read in Olivia's distinctive handwriting, "I wanted you to have something for your first day of class too. Consider it a small thank you for everything you've done for me, everything you've taught me. I can't wait to see where your new journey takes you. Love, Olivia." Inside the package was a beautiful leather-bound journal, the cover embossed with a simple camera icon. Opening it, I found the first page inscribed with a quote. "The best images are the ones that retain their strength and impact over the years, regardless of the number of times they are viewed." Anne Geddes. Beneath the quote, Olivia had written, "For your photography journey, may you capture moments that matter, just as you've created them throughout my life." I traced my fingers over her words, tears blurring my vision once again. This thoughtful gift represented so much more than a practical tool for my upcoming classes. It was an acknowledgement of my identity beyond motherhood, an encouragement to pursue my own passions, a recognition of the value I had tried to instill in her about capturing and cherishing life's meaningful moments. Setting the journal on my desk, I noticed the time, nearly 9 p.m. I wondered what Olivia was doing now. Meeting her hallmates, perhaps. Arranging her music for tomorrow's placement auditions. Starting to create the rhythms and routines of her new life. My phone chimed with a text message. It was from Olivia, a selfie of her and Zoe at the welcome dinner, both smiling widely, surrounded by other freshmen. Making friends already, the cello players are sitting together at breakfast. Tomorrow to compare schedules. Nervous but excited for auditions. How's the house without me? Too quiet? I smiled, typing back. The house misses you, but I'm doing okay. Found your gift. It's perfect, thank you. Get some rest before those auditions. You'll be amazing. Her response came quickly. Thanks for believing in me, always. Good night, Mom. Love you. 3 simple words that encapsulated the journey we had traveled. Love you too, I replied. Setting down my phone, I moved to the window, gazing out at the night sky. The same stars that shone over Olivia's new campus were visible here, a reminder of the connections that transcended physical distance. In 2 weeks, I would begin my own classes, stepping into a new identity as a student, an artist, a woman reclaiming dreams set aside during years of caregiving. The college fund, what remained of it and what I had set aside, would serve its purpose, though not in the way I had originally intended. Instead of being simply a financial resource, it had become a catalyst for honest communication, for reassessing our relationship, for growth on both our parts. In trying to secure Olivia's future, I had inadvertently created an opportunity for us to build a stronger foundation for our ongoing relationship as she moved into adulthood. Tomorrow, I would begin researching materials for the guest cottage. Renovation. Next week, I would purchase supplies for my photography classes. Life would continue forward, changing shape, but not substance. And in this new chapter, both Olivia and I would carry with us the lessons learned through that painful moment of reckoning and the healing that followed. Lessons about honest communication, about setting boundaries, about the true meaning of family. It wasn't biology that made us mother and daughter, nor was it legal documentation. It was the choice we made each day to love each other, to respect each other, to support each other's dreams while maintaining our individual identities. It was the thousands of small moments accumulated over 15 years and the countless more that awaited us in the future. As I turned from the window, a sense of peace settled over me. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever new transitions we would face, the foundation had been rebuilt, stronger than before. And that, in the end, was worth far more than any college fund could measure. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.